the heart of the World Series by Renault with Elf.
Welcome back to Motorland Aragon, the start of the Formula Renault 3.5 series, and lots of wheel spin from Mathieu Vazivière to take the pole-sitting Lotus away on the final formation lap. In fact, lots of rubber being laid down. Martin Haven, Tom Gaymore watching from the commentary booth. And Tom, this track doesn't get used an awful lot. They had Superbikes here just a few weeks ago, but you want to leave as much rubber as you can in your pit box so that there's something other than dusty track for the tyres to grip.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You hear other commentators and other drivers talking about the dirty side of the grid. It does apply here at Motorland Aragon. Very difficult to get away if you're on the even side of the grid. It is, however, Martin, a really short run down to turn one. So the concertina effect is exaggerated here because the cars don't really spread out. There's no elongation, and what happens is everyone kind of clusters into that apex. Luckily, there's a big runoff, but expect to see maybe one or two carbon fiber shards disappearing from these cars. It is round one. There are a few rookies in this championship. It does happen. Cold breaks.
There's nearly a dozen rookies in a field of 20 cars, so more than half of them have never raced these cars before. They have had pre-season testing. There you see Jasman Jafar. He's got lots of single-seater experience. And is Jasman one of the rookies here?
No.
He was like last year. He was here last year.
Yeah,
so
Jasman Jafar,
with Fortec.
It's his third year, and he's only ever finished on the podium 3 times. He's only ever finished third, so he has a real opportunity to better that this year. A great foundation, Fortec, a very, very quick British team, and really had a lot of success as the grid is up.
Vazivière on pole then, Ollie Rowland at Fortec, second on the grid in the red, white and blue Racing Steps Foundation car, ahead of Mindert Van Buren and Jasman Jafar. Then Tom Dillman, Dean Stoneman, Theo Elinas and Nicholas Latifi from Cyprus and Canada. Nick de Vries, the reigning 2-litre Formula Renault Euro Cup champion, out-qualifies Pietro Fantin, Beitske Visser and Formula 1 driver Roberto Meri. Then Igor Orodchev up from 2-litre. Sean Galeal's in from Euro Formula 3, ahead of Alfonso Chelis and Roy Nissany, another Formula 3 driver. Bonifacio comes in as one of the front runners in last year's 2-litre Euro Cup championship, ahead of Armand Aurelien Panis and Gustav Mallier, who was second fastest in qualifying. The Straka Racing driver will start last, though, because there was an issue with the floor on his car in post-qualifying tech, and that's a real disappointment for the Swede. Mathieu Vazivière sits on pole in the black and gold Lotus with the red nose of Ollie Rowland alongside. Motorland Aragon, race 1 of the season that starts here in April and runs until the end of October when they finish off back here in Spain. It's Vazivière and Rowland. Ollie Rowland outside front row of the grid, and problem there for one of the 2 AVF cars. Is that Beitske Visser? It is Beitske Visser. Now, she should be starting in 11th place. So my random pre-race, I think she's going to win it comment, clearly the curse of the commentator before the race gets underway.
She may still get going. Green flag is waved, the red lights will build, and they are at the top of your screen.
As she goes into the pit lane, let's watch them as they get away to the start of the season. The 2 Lotus cars trying to get through is Mindert Van Buren, and almost contact, and Ollie Rowland is going to have to try and take advantage of that. Rowland stays on track. Around the outside goes the silver car of Jasman Jafar. Is that Sean Galeal in the background, and Roy Nissany wouldn't be the first time they've come to blows, but it is from row 2 of the grid. Mindert Van Buren, who leads from Ollie Rowland, Jasman Jafar and our pole sitter. Mathieu Vazivière runs off wide again. He's going to lose a place. He does to the Red Bull car, so Vazivière first to 5th. We haven't even got to the back straight yet.
Just as I called it, turn 1 here can be a real issue. It was Mindert Van Buren, win it or bin it. You can't win it at the first corner. No one told Van Buren. He's tried just that, put a lot of pressure onto the pole man and Ollie Rowland, and is now leading this race. Ollie Rowland very quick away from the dirty side of the grid, and poor old Vazivière, he's going backwards. We just saw him off as well further down your screen. Another good start from Jasman Jafar. Dean Stoneman up to 4th, and then it is your pole man Vazivière rounding out the top 5.
Yeah, so Stoneman made a decent start from 6th on the grid, but Vazevier, what a horror story that was. Mindert Van Buren, the race leader, definitely not a phrase I've ever said before. Trouble for Bikes-Kevessi. You saw her being pushed back into the pits. Paz Armand, he's been pushed back into the pits, and the two cars that were missing are Roy Nissany and Sean Gelael after that first lap incident. And Theo Elinas, the second Straka Racing car, down in 16th and last, because Gustav Mallier is already up to 11th place, and that's him. Car number 12 just coming in at the back of the shop. Wow, what an opening lap Mallier has got. Yeah,
really good opening lap from Mallier. Another lose is Tom Dillman in the second Jagon-Urayan with Carlin car, and we're looking at one of the Straka Racing cars, Theo Elinas, isn't it? That's who's off there. The number 11 car.
If that's a Straka car, it can only be Elinas, because we just saw his teammate. You're absolutely right. So we've lost, what, 6 cars in one lap? 2 of them didn't make the start. Blimey, this is going to be an entertaining race. 40 minutes plus 1 lap, and tomorrow 40 minutes plus 1 lap with a mandatory pit stop. And tomorrow the cars won't look like they're in Formula 3 at Thruxton or Monza trim. You see the high-end place there, new nose going on to Aurelien Panis in the Tech 1 garage.
Now, Aurelien Panis was one of the cars that was sort of up in the air and spun around at turn 1, and then there are plenty of other cars with rear suspension damage and in with the melee, and
that's the other Tech 1 car.
No, is that Panis?
That's Roy Nissany coming in.
Yeah,
we saw Panis having the tyre change. He is the son of Olivier Panis, last Frenchman to win a Grand Prix, and out goes Igor Orudchev.
Now, he had a puncture off the back of contact with Panis at turn 1. He went off spinning into turn 2 and 3, very quick right-handers, and you can just see Mindert Van Buren checking out. He's had a best finish of 5th only in his World Series career so far. He's had a couple of years. He was 19th in the championship last year. What a turnaround from him so far.
Well, he's trying to check out, but it's not happening for him. Trying to get the car up in the air to put a new tyre on Roy Nissany's machine. The Israeli was in Formula 3 last year. This is a very different sized car, and away he goes. So the lead was 1.64 and remains, well, it is now 1.64, was about 1.5 seconds over Ollie Rowland. Van Buren got away on lap 1, is getting no further, and Rowland and Jafar are close enough. They ought to actually be a little closer down the straight together. If Rowland can trust Jafar not to have a silly lunge in the first few laps, then they should be able to catch Mindert Van Buren fairly fast.
And going back to what you were saying in a second ago about this Monza spec rear wing, you can see the main plane there effectively really trimmed out. It's because these cars have to run in low aero configuration, if you like. Expect them to run a lot more downforce tomorrow when it is open. You tend to run high downforce here because that middle sector is so important. You have the DRS to get the time back down the straight, and they will have that tomorrow. They do actually have DRS today, but it's rendered effectively useless because
the wing's already stalled.
Yeah, stalling that main plane, it's effectively flat anyway. So the main talking point, though, away from the DRS is rear tyre wear. These cars, since they've been introduced, this is the first time the newer car has run on this LAC configuration. And with the horsepower extension that they've had and the way that the power is delivered, it's quite aggressive. The rear tyres are going to really go off, especially through the tight and twisty elements of the middle sector. And I was talking to Ollie Rowland before, Martin. He was saying that tyre management's going to be really important in the early and mid phases of this race. Is he doing just that now, managing his tyres as Van Buren jets off into the horizon?
The Arden SMP driver, Igor Orodchev, joins our retirement. That's now 4 cars we've lost. Sean Gelael, Bikes-Kevessi, Theo Elinas. Roy Nissany's been in for a pit stop. Orodchev had already as well. Armand and Panis had. So did Alfonso Celis Jr. So has Tom Dillman. So 11 cars, the first 11, have not been into the pits.
Meinert van Buren under investigation for a jump start. We saw how quickly he got in and amongst the front row starters, his teammate Vaxivière and Ollie Rowland. Vaxivière won't be too pleased because he's been the pace setter all winter. He was fastest in the first 2 collective tests. If Van Buren has jumped the start and effectively jeopardised Vaxivière's race, not that he did anything wrong, that'll be the first silent moment in that,
in that little dynamic
that you have during the season.
And of course, in the olden days, it would have been a judge of fact who reported that he thought the driver had jumped the start. Nowadays, the telemetry reports that the driver did jump the start. So he's been reported for a suspected jump start. Basically, all we're waiting now is for the penalty, which will be a drive-through. Ollie Rowland then, second. Jazeman Jaffar, his Fortec teammate, different liveries, but the same team. He lies in third. Dean Stoneman, fourth for Dams, with the yellow nose on the Red Bull car. Then Mathieu Vaxivière, and then in sixth, Nick de Vries, the Dams car. Seventh with the silver nose and the red strips down the side of it is Pietro Fantin for Draco. Eighth, Roberto Meri for Pons. Ninth, Bruno Bonifacio for Draco. And rounding out the top 10 at the moment will be Nicholas Latifi for Arden. So Lotus have certainly got pace. Van Buren again setting the fastest race lap last time round, beating that set by Mathieu Vaxivière the last time before that. So Van Buren is really trying to make up a margin. He's gone out from 1.6 to 2.7, but that is not enough if he gets the drive through that we expect.
It's a fascinating dynamic bringing this LAC back, isn't it? And you can just see Fortec and Dams. They obviously like the downforce because, as we see a replay at the start, watch, Van Buren does go very early.
Yeah.
I'd like to see that again. It's very difficult for us looking at the cars, but you can see there, Vaxivière, when you're on the outside, and Rowland, very, very robust on the inside. Look, well, he does go early, doesn't he, there?
Either that or everybody else goes late, and it's hard to tell. That's why they have digital monitoring.
He's
the lights have gone.
No, he went before the red lights. I'm gonna call that.
Well, listen,
I think he's jumped the start.
If the timekeepers say he jumped the start, he's jumped the start. There's no two ways about it.
You can visibly see that he was going before the lights went off from the angle that we just saw.
Yeah.
So Meinert van Buren fans won't thank me for that, but I'm pretty sure he's going to get a penalty.
Battle in the background. The yellow car is Nick de Vries with Pietro Fantin and Roberto Meri lining up behind him. Notice how they all sweep out wide to go over the curbs and then come back on. They only do it for 3 or 4 car lengths. I'm quite sure what the reason there is. You'd assume there's a bump on the straight. However, you'd assume that it's not that damaging, because some people do go straight on there. Race leader is Meinert van Buren. He is now 3.5 seconds clear of Ollie Rowland and Jazeman Jaffar, but with the potential of a penalty for a jump start hanging over his head. Tom Gaymore, first of all, the potential for the jump start. We see him go quicker than anybody else, or far before anybody else.
You need to see it from the other angle because you can see the lights.
The question is, though, even if he didn't have a jump start, going this hard this early, is he going to end up running into tyre problems late in the race that's going to leave him vulnerable to attack? This is something, we're venturing into the unknown here. Nobody else seems to be going quite as fast, and I don't think it's because they can't.
Yeah, I mean, Ollie Rowland, I'm pretty sure is managing his tyres. He's not deliberately letting Van Buren get away, but I think Van Buren's remit now, because I'm sure that the team and the driver know ultimately what's gone on. Van Buren's remit is to push, because if he does get that penalty, he's got to be as far ahead as the rest of the field as possible to try and get the compromise. And Richard Dutton, he will be campaigning for this because he knows if there is a sniff of an opportunity to get that man ahead of Van Buren without Rowland having to risk his tyres or risk too much by chasing and having to pass, then they will try and do their level best to get their man past.
Time penalty for car number 10, Mathieu Vaxivière. So a 20-second penalty. Now that will be relayed to the team, and in fact that's what we were hearing there, half hearing Richard Dutton on the Fortec Pratt Perch hearing. And the deal then means you can let him go, but not too far. You don't have to attack him, you don't have to overtake him, you just have to be 9.999 seconds behind him, and you win. So there's the deal for Ollie Rowland. Manage the tyres, maintain the gap. Van Buren somehow in 40 minutes has to find a quarter-second a lap on everybody and hold it.
It's damage limitation for Van Buren. Just if the race was ended now, to give you an indication, he would finish around 11th. Malia is 20 seconds behind the race leader in 11th. So that's just how well, devastating it is for the Lotus crew and for Van Buren, but it was an obvious jump start. That's now been communicated to Ollie Rowland. Ollie Rowland will manage his position. He's doing a good job. He's got a comfort blanket over Jasmine Jafar. The car looks good at this stage. He's doing everything he did or told me he was going to do. So this is perfect for Fortec and Ollie Rowland at this stage.
Well, now for the other Lotus that we're looking at here, the number 9 car of Mathieu Vazivière, the real pressure's on to get by Dean Stoneman. At the moment, let's assume that the gap doubles and Van Buren is 6-7 seconds ahead because he set another fastest lap. Well, that will drop him down somewhere around the Stoneman-Vazivière route. And you can see team talking to on the radio to Van Buren to keep pushing. So if it did, then it dropped Van Buren back, then Vazivière may end up behind his teammate despite that penalty. Well, you see one of, that's Roberto Mera. No, it's Paz Armand. I'm saying Roberto Mera, very unusual mistake from him, but it's not him. That's one of the 2 Pons races. Can't get my head around Pons not in blue and black. That's very strange. Cito Pons' team in black and yellow this year, which is quite an odd combination. You're going to have to get used to that.
It's as obvious as the red and white that Fortec carry through most of their championships. Yeah. The Dams livery, that yellow and black, but yeah, it's so different seeing the Pons cars as they are now.
Pons is black with yellow, Dams is definitely yellow with black highlights, or side patches or whatever. Red, white and blue for Ollie Rowland, the Fortec Racing Steps Foundation livery car, as opposed to the Fortec's second car, which is Jasmine Jafar just behind him.
It's been...
What are they turning around to have a look at from the Pratt Birch? What are they seeing now? What are they hearing? Are they looking to the pits?
Yeah, possible to guess. No pit stops today, as you said earlier, Martin. Only tomorrow. But it's a difficult winter when you're Ollie Rowland, because you're being billed as effectively the championship favourite. You've got a long time to think about that. Testing hasn't quite gone according to plan, and with this new LAC introduction on the Saturday, taking away maybe a bit of the Fortec Dams advantage that we've seen over the last few years. So Ollie would have come here not with an element of uncertainty, but with a little bit of, not self-doubt, but with the pressure on his shoulders, I should say. And well, Vaxivière is going to send it up the inside. No, it's not. Dean Stoneman, last of the late breakers. You're not going to... You're not, well, no, that's the line. You try and get the car as straight as possible to get the traction. Traction's so important up the hill here.
Yeah, but Stoneman turned very tight at that hairpin to fire it up the hill to try and get a car as straight as possible before getting on the gas. And Vazivière, beg your pardon, yeah, Vazivière is all over the back of him. I did say a couple of laps ago, Vazivière needs to get by Stoneman and get in some clean air and try and run away to try and catch Rowland and Jafar to give himself at least a podium to start the season.
I tell you what, Vaxivière will be steaming underneath that helmet, especially now he knows his teammates got that penalty for the jump start. He's the one that's looking the raciest out of everyone, isn't he? He's been so quick, as I alluded to earlier, over the winter. And Dean Stoneman now under real pressure, and with 25 minutes still to go. What Vaxivière can't do is use too much of his rear tyres up. It's those rear tyres that are going to be the question mark, and you're going to need them to get out of turns 14 and turn 15 down that straight to try and put the move on Stoneman down into turn 16. But Stoneman, as we know, is very aggressive in a good way. Yeah. And you're going to have to be pretty aggressive yourself to get past him. Battle
we've seen last year, Straka racing car versus Pons racing car of Roberto Meri. This time, though, it's not Will Stevens in the black and grey Straka car. It is Gustav Malia, who should have started on the front row of the grid, and in fact started in 20th place after a problem with the car after post post-qualifying tech, or in post-qualifying tech. So he started last. He's battling Roberto Meri for 9th place because who did that? Because he was 11th. Who did they get by? Was that
Dillman dropped down to 15. Dillman, I think, is carrying a problem with that Jagonia I am with Carlin car.
He's 2 laps back, isn't he?
But Malia now to the outside, and Meri using all of his experience to cover the inside, and he's saying, well, listen, if you want to pass me, you're going to have to do it the hard way. Has to get the car stopped. That's a block move there from Meri. Didn't quite get it stopped, but he had Malia where he wanted on the outside. Couldn't get the switch back.
But just the fact that he was forced to defend on the inside shows that Malia had a good run and has got a quicker car down that straight than Roberto Meri, because Meri is nobody's mug in these things. Nearly won the championship last year, ended up with a Formula 1 drive somehow anyway. And Malia in that Straka car all over the back of him. He needs to get on with this a little, because Bruno Bonifacio in the Draco racing car is behind him. Bonifacio, another rookie, stepping up from the 2-litre Renault Euro Cup last year.
He joins an all-Brazilian affair, doesn't he, at International Draco. His teammate Pietro Fantin, very experienced in this championship.
Yellow and black car of Roberto Meri, number 40. Not sure why Dams have gone with 39 and 40 in a 20-car field, but, you know, whatever. I'm sure they're happy with that. And behind him, Gustav Malia, Bruno Bonifacio, and Alfonso Chelis for AVF was starting to look like he was catching.
Look at Vaxivière there, just losing ground coming out of turn 15 as he just got those rear tyres into a window where they're just starting to overheat now. That there is a bit like you see in Formula 1, there'll be an element of thermal, not degradation, but once it gets over a certain temperature, you just start to lose grip.
And long straight should help to cool them down a little. It's not the world's hottest day here.
I think it's Vaxivière that probably needs cooling down.
Well,
at this
you know, I'm sure he's stopped cursing himself now, but not.
He didn't make a bad start.
No, he didn't, did he?
It was just his teammate got in the mix. 3 into 1 doesn't go here.
Yeah. Well, here we go again. Roberto Meri defending down the straight. Not a long straight, that one either, so he obviously didn't get off the hairpin too well. I think Mary's right front wing is flapping around a lot. Has he got an end plate on it? Have I not noticed that before? He doesn't have an end plate on it, so it might be his end plate that was sitting in the middle of the turn 1-2 transition after the first corner. That's probably why the thing is not hauling down the straight the way that it ought to.
You know, those end plates do provide some aero efficiency. They help guide the wind over the floor. The floor is essentially where you get a lot of downforce from these cars, from most single-seaters, in fact. So
probably
losing aero efficiency, it'll be losing grip now as well, especially through the left-hand corners. And Malia really doing his level best to get past. Malia's a strange individual in terms, well, I don't mean that personally, but in terms of his success in Euro Cup was non-existent, but he had success in the North East Championship, the NEC Championship, and he was so quick in Formula ADAC in 2012, second to Marvin Kirchhofer, and he's no slouch, so he's obviously got a huge amount of talent. Put it on the front row here. So that Euro Cup bubble was effectively a learning curve for him. He's certainly come up to 3.5 now, and without that DQ in qualifying, would probably be right in the mix at the front.
Yeah, absolutely would be. Stoneman still holding off Vaxivière. The Red Bull and the Lotus cars, 4th and 5th. Dean Stoneman just in front for Dams Racing. 11 laps in. It's not about the number of laps here. 20 minutes remain, plus 1 final lap. And Vaxivière, after a lap of a breather, starts attacking Stoneman again. The only problem with taking a bit of a breather is that you get to relax, your car gets to relax a little, and maybe you can use a different line to cool the tyres and bring temperatures down, but then so does the guy you're chasing.
Well, Stoneman there just running wide through turn 7. Now it's the direction change, 8 and 9. Downhill, and you really build the throttle. It's flat out through turns 10 and 11 here, and then up to 12. Fairly quick entry. You need a good and well-balanced car here. This is where we're at now, turns 12, sort of 3rd gear. And you need to be good and neat through 13 because that sets you up for turn 14 and 15, which is essentially the run on to the long straight. Here we go. And back to the air, you can see the rear of the car moving through 14. That compromised his entry into turn 15. Couldn't get the exit that he wants, and he's dropping back from Stoneman in the area that he needs to be close to him to get that move done into the hairpin. So prime example there of why you've got to be good through 14, why you've got to look after your rear tyres. Those rear tyres starting to go off on Vaxavier's Lotus. Showing his nose a little there, but I don't think Stoneman would have been overly worried by that. If he saw him coming alongside, he'd just open the steering and allow Vaxivier to head off into a different county because he would never be stopping. I guess the problem at the end of that straight for Roberto Meri is why he consistently seems to be under attack from Gustav Malja, is that wing. In fact, Malja's got by him. We didn't see that happen, did we? And hang on a minute, and Tom Dillman has moved up the order as well. So Nick de Vries 7th, Tom Dillman up to 8th, Latifi 9th. So Malja and Meri somewhere have tangled. Well, Bonifacio, yeah, is still behind. Yeah. So you're absolutely right. Yeah, so we haven't seen that at all, I'm afraid. And the cameras, it may not have been recorded, but somewhere Gustav Malja, Roberto Meri have tangled, and you would assume at the end of the straight. There is Meri with Bonifacio behind him. And Chelis Jr. And Chelis Jr., yeah. Red and black nose. So Tom Dillman has gone by. And now Tom Dillman drops back behind Gustav Malja. So Malja has gone by him, and Dillman is plummeting down the order on our timing screens. Was that a glitch? Okay, yeah, here we go. This is on into turn 1. Down the inside comes Bonifacio. Runs wide. Meri says thank you very much. Textbook stuff. But where did Meri and Malja tangle? Must have been the end of the back straight. There's something wrong with Dillman's transponder, because there's no way he could have got to where he got and then drop back down again. He's up and down like the Assyrian Empire is what he is. So yes, don't need any help confusing me. No, exactly. Especially when we're not seeing the pictures of it happening. It's bad enough when we miss stuff that we are seeing. It's really bad when we miss stuff that we don't. You called Malja getting past Meri. That's definitely happened. You can see that on screen. And look at that move, Chelis Jr. What? Pardon me. Now, you talked about a block pass earlier on. I'm not actually sure he meant to get by him there. I think he just messed it up. He just sent it. That was basically, I'm coming through, or we're going to park on the exit on top of each other. So, Chelis Jr., a very opportunist move. Bonifacio didn't see it coming, and you can just carry a lot of speed through 14. And hang on a minute. That's Roy Nissany. No, that's got to be Chelis Jr. 17 is Roy Nissany. It is. That is Roy Nissany, who is 2 laps down. So, yes, there we go. No wonder Bonifacio got the hell out of the way. Some unguided missile that's 2 laps down came flying by. They would have been saying to him across the straight, don't worry, that's not for position, let him go. Wow! And suddenly he appears on the inside in a tight left-hand hairpin. Yeah, very, very difficult to pick that out. And it's the orange that fooled me, because Chelis's car is... Well, it's an AVF car, so it's all orange. Yeah, So that's your Tech 1 black with orange. Apologies, round one. No, not at all. Not at all. Need to get to learn the liveries, and that's what we're doing live on air. I was wondering what on earth he was doing, lunging down the inside like that, and I'm now double that. I'm wondering twice as much what he was doing. P1, lap 11. Well, that's right, because Roland, with his slowly catchy monkey approach, is now only 2.4 behind Mindert Van Buren, who was out to 4 point something earlier on in the run. So Ollie Rowland with his teammate Jasman Jafar and the silver and turquoise car behind, they will be 1 and 2, and at the moment Mindert Van Buren dropping 10 seconds will leave him still somewhere in the Dean Stone and Mathieu Vaxivière equation. In fact, behind Vaxivière, who is 9.1 seconds behind the leader at the moment as the gap comes down. Mindert Van Buren with a 10-second penalty over his head for a jump start leads the race here in Motorland Aragon. Ollie Rowland in second, Jasman Jafar in third, both for Fortec will be first and second. And here is the battle for third. Dean Stoneman leads the other Lotus, the black and gold number 9 car of Mathieu Vaxivière, our poleman, who was edged out wide into turn 1 by his jump-starting teammate who came from behind, and Roy Nissany
Where are we? We're April the 25th. I'm saying he's already off the Christmas card lists, definitely of Bruno Bonifacio, and in front of him Roberto Meri, without question. And there's still 8 months till Christmas.
When Asani tried something at turn 1, and Dillman keeps on going up and down our timing screens.
Yeah, we're ignoring Tom Dillman with no disrespect, but it's not helping
to pick that out. I'd like to see him on track actually, but essentially Nissany in the meat is the meat in this sandwich, and Bonifacio will not welcome him being there. He's trying to get past Meri. Nissany said, well, if you're not going to get past him, I'm going to try and unlap myself and clear off. So Nissany's put the move on Bonifacio just around the corner from where we're heading now. So we'll head through 12 and 13. That's where Nissany put the move on this man, the white car, the Brazilian Bruno Bonifacio, the International Draco Racing entry in. Nissany not close enough to Meri to do the same.
This is all irrelevant because he was facing the wrong way in turn 1 after contact, and he is 2 laps down, Roy Nissany. So he's just essentially getting in the way and ruining other people's battles. Now, obviously, he wants to drive the car as quickly as he can, but you need to have a degree of discretion in these circumstances.
What's fascinating me is the fact that Van Buren now, lead is coming down. Ollie Rowland, without doing too much, has been driving to a delta lap time to conserve those rear tyres, and Van Buren, who went off like a scalded hare earlier on in the race, is now starting to struggle, isn't he?
Yeah.
That's not going to help his cause one bit with that 20-second penalty.
Well, listen, that answers our question from earlier on. How fast can you go in LAC, low aero configuration, before it all goes wrong? And here is the double-lapped car of Roy Nissany, right up behind Roberto Meri. And that's why Roberto was under pressure all the way down the straight, all through the race, because that damaged wing means no grip at the front when you're braking. And that right-hand front wheel is the one you want to lean on as you roll off the brakes, and it's not got the aero you want.
And that's not going to help Roberto Meri. He'll start to find that flat spot, and if he's got to defend, brake late from Bonifacio, he won't mind too much if Nissany comes, because as you said, it's not really the cause that he's fighting, but that will affect him with 12 minutes left on this clock if he has to defend from Bruno Bonifacio later on in the race.
And the real problem is with a loose cannon like that rolling round on the deck, there's no guarantee he's not going to shunt you from behind. In the pits is the other AVF car. We had 16 Bites Kavissa in earlier. She didn't start the race. Her car's already up on stands being prepared for tomorrow. Jr. And Alfonso Chilis Jr. comes in and he retires as well. So that's 2 DNFs, or 1 DNS and 1 DNF for AVF. I'm afraid Adrian Baez will not be over thrilled with that start to their season. Qualifying 2 and race 2 on Sunday had better go a little better than that.
As it stands at the moment, it is a Fortec 1-2, because although Meinert Van Buren, who shot through your screen in the Lotus livery car, is leading, it is essentially his race is over because of that 20-second penalty, so it is a Fortec 1-2.
The real problem for Ollie Rowland is there's 11 minutes and a lap remaining. He doesn't have to pass Meinert Van Buren, but at the rate that Rowland and Jafar are lapping, compared to the rate that Van Buren is lapping, which is 2 or 3 tenths slower, actually they might catch him by the end of the race, and there's a problem. Suddenly, instead of having clear air in front of you when you're Ollie Rowland and your teammate safely behind, if you start running up behind Van Buren, you're going to have to pass him just to stop Jazeman Jafar jumping you on the last lap and taking the win.
You're absolutely right. Ollie Rowland will be praying that that does not happen.
Yeah. Could you please go down to Lotus and ask him to hurry up and stay in front?
Meanwhile, the engineer on the pit wall is probably thinking exactly the same as you and I, Martin, because there is every possibility that that could happen. Vaxivière dropped off the back of Dean Stoneman, so just shows that aggressive nature, the pace that he had, couldn't use it, couldn't get past Dean Stoneman, has overheated his rear tyres, and he may come back for another go just before the end of the race. As it stands at the moment, struggling.
Well, actually, that shot there, just the go-away shot towards the end of the straight, answered my question as to why they all weave over the curbing halfway down the straight, because you saw him not, and a big puff of smoke from the floor as the bump hits him. And that is a good kick up the seat of the pants every lap.
Yeah, so it's physically unpleasant. If you've got any fillings, they'll probably fall out over the space of a 40-minute race. But what you're doing is what happens when the floor touches the ground. it's friction. What's that going to do? It's going to slow you down. So that's why they're trying to get away from it. They don't want the belly of this car on the floor, because that's going to really hurt your speed.
Well, there is Roberto Meri, still with Roy Nissany behind him, the Israeli driver in the Tech 1 car. The black car with the Dayglow orange highlights, and the white machine of Bruno Bonifacio closing in. The Draco Racing team, originally, of course, from Brazil, came over to race in Formula Lotus many years ago,
there, didn't he?
Well, you know, that's maybe setting a trend there for the season. I don't wish to be too harsh on him, but he struggled a little last year in the Formula 3 Euro Series. I think these bigger, faster cars may be stretching him a little bit more again.
For Bonifacio, it's a bit like being chased around the garden by a wasp. You just don't want that attention. Like you said, a loose cannon earlier. You just want to be able to focus on Meri. Look, this is Roy Nissany outbraking himself, going off.
Now, you're still saying that move down into turn 9 was deliberate. You're sticking with that?
No, that was deliberate on Bonifacio, definitely.
So he deliberately drove out wide there to get out of the way. I'm saying he's not got a handle on the car yet.
Well,
that's all.
There could be that, but that was just down at turn 1. And here's Meinert Van Buren leading on the road, I should say, from Ollie Rowland, Jasmine Jafar, effectively a 4-Tech 1-2, as I said earlier. There's Dean Stoneman, who's effectively in 3rd place for Dams. And then Vaxavier with Pietro Fantin in the 2nd International Draco Racing car. We've seen a lot of his teammate Roberto Meri. This is
at the yellow and black car, that's Paz Armand, who is back out of the pit lane. Another new young Indian driver. Now, not a guy I've ever seen race before, so a bit of roll over steer in the middle of the corner there. Just if you're completing your debrief bingo card, you'll be able to notch that box somewhere.
It's almost confusing. It's Fido Paz, Patrick Armand.
Yeah, well, a selection of names, many of which, or some of which, may appear on your entry list at some stage in your career. This is why people like Yurki Arvileto changed their name to something a little bit easier to understand. Ayrton Senna da Silva, Nelson Sotomayor became Nelson Piquet. Well, that was to hide his racing from his wealthy family, who he correctly assumed wouldn't approve.
Roy Nissany's finally dropped off this battle, leaving it down to a real clear fight for position. Roberto Meri still occupying that 11th place. Bruno Bonifacio still trying to get past him.
Top 10 finish, in fact, for Roberto Meri and Bonifacio up for grabs here. Meri clinging on to it. And these things, I wonder how these things compare now. He's just jumped out of the Formula 1 car last week and back into something he probably actually knows a little better. Roberto Meri in the yellow and black car in 10th place, holding off rookie Bruno Bonifacio. Roberto Meri, one of last year's championship front runners. His season challenge came to an end when he was clattered off race 1 in the final weekend in Jerez. Yeah, it could well have ended up. All right, he needed luck and maths and everything else on his side to, and basically needed Carlos Sainz to fall down the stairs or dislocate his shoulder in the shower or something to win it, but still. Dicing here with Bruno Bonifacio. Bonifacio goes by in a straight line. Meri on the inside gets it stopped without the lockup, and that's a measure of how good a driver he is rather than how good a setup on the car he's got, because his front wing's been flapping around since corner 1, lap 1.
Now he's under pressure, couldn't get to the inside. He wanted to try and get back across, and Bonifacio has got past Roberto Meri finally. And you're right, though, Meri did a really good job into the hairpin, driving to what's underneath him, which isn't what he was hoping for. Bonifacio doing the right thing. The International Draco Racing squad looking on, waiting for that run up the hill. And then Nissany up the inside.
Don't do that. Roy Nissany in the Tech 1 car, the black and orange machine, 2 laps down. Just had a major wobble through turn 1. Chasing the leaders. Meinert Van Buren, the black car, number 10, leading on the road, was 2.1 seconds in front of number 4, Ollie Rowland, in the 4-Tech Motorsport entry at the beginning of the lap, and I think that again has come down. Jasmine Jafar lies 3rd. Rowland's 2/10 quicker on sector 2 alone, 1/10 slower on sector 1. I think Rowland is trying to ease his pace. Last time round, Van Buren a 44.8. Rowland a 44.7. Gap is 2.2 seconds.
I think, if anything, it's just that Jasmine Jafar has gone slower.
Yeah, well, Jafar has backed off. He's back in the 45s because he thinks, I'm not going to catch Rowland and pass him cleanly before the end, and I'm still going to be in second place.
It's the old days of Thunderline. I'm not pushing. The others are going slow.
Yeah.
And I'm really, really impressed with Ollie Rowland so far. He just seems to be coming of age in terms of his maturity. He's really thought about this. And you can see that unfold. It was a great lesson to see Minot van Buren sprint off, use those rear tyres. Ollie Rowland driving to a delta time, knew exactly what he needed to do.
And in comes Roberto Meri. He's out of the top 10. He's giving up a tough battle and might as well do. Not going to get any more points from there unless somebody retires. Meri in the pit lane. He did what he could with what he had. And unfortunately, somebody's tyre was used to lever the end plate off his right front wing. It's a little bit of a first corner kerfuffle, and he was ultimately one of the victims of that as well. And
you get points all the way down to 10th place, just like you do in Formula 1. 25 for the win, 1 point for 10th. And Minot van Buren, where's he going to end up?
Time penalty for Minot van Buren. He will be behind his teammate Mathieu Vazivière, who is currently in 5th, so he'll be 5th. Everybody else will move up in front. He'll drop behind the first 4 cars behind him, so he'll go to 5th.
It's around 5th or 6th, and Pietro Fantin's so far behind now in 6th. Yeah, it's going to be 5th. So
yeah, he'll need a drive-through as well to drop behind Pietro Fantin. More entertainment. Excellent stuff. Sean Galale. No, that's Tom Dillman under pressure from the number 5 car, Nicholas Latifi. In fact, the other way round, Latifi being passed by Tom Dillman, who tries to unlap himself, we believe, or possibly is in 12th, possibly that's for position. Hard to tell with our timing screen because he zooms up and down all over the place.
Dillman, who started 5th, he didn't have the first lap that he wanted to have, did he? This Jagonyi with Carlin's squad back to World Series by Renault. Carlin weren't involved last year. They've come back with Sean Gilal and Tom Dillman, and Tom Dillman doing a very, very good job in qualifying. Sean was complaining of having traffic. He's a rookie. He's going to get stronger as the year goes on. But I think Tom Dillman's really going to have a strong year because with Carlin, he's with a very, very good squad. And expect them to really take the fight to Fortec, Dams and Lotus as the year unfolds.
Now, our timing screen tells us that Tom Dillman, the yellow car there, has just passed Bruno Bonifacio, whereas patently our eyes tell us that's Aaron Toss. So I'm not quite sure what's going on with that. Bonifacio now appears to have repassed him. So all this activity going on our timing and scoring monitor alongside the screen that's showing none of it actually happening.
Well, if you're watching the timing screen, it's been an epic race, because the midfield's going up.
Dillman, he's had more incidents than everybody else's entire season put together. However, he is, I believe he is a lap down, so at the moment should be in 12th place behind Aurelien Panis, who we saw hit earlier on with first lap damage. Bruno Bonifacio is in 10th. And Nicholas Latifi, who's the other car in the shot here, car number 5, is in 8th place, and that will remain 8th, the Arden Motorsport driver. That's a more traditional Arden colour, isn't it, with the red, white and blue?
It's Latifi's colours. He's run that livery pretty much all through his career. Very well backed, and a talented young man as well. And he's been plying his trade in and around Formula 3, and with that Safina sponsor behind him, expect him to progress. He's, as I said, well backed and will do a campaign or 2 in this championship. And with Arden, he's in good hands as well. They know how to run a good car, just like Fortec Dams, just like Carlin. And we see Dillman running wide there. That's not going to hurt him though. This middle sector, there's effectively one line, very difficult to get past, and Latifi can't make it stick. But yeah, Latifi is plying his trade and progressing nicely.
Still very young as well, 19 years old, the Canadian. Tom Dillman, on the other hand, 26. And you start to think, Tom, it's time to find a drive in sports car racing, because Formula One is not coming calling.
He's done that. He's come back, hasn't he? He's synonymous to GP2. He's got race wins in that category. Then he went the sports car route last year because he never, ever had the funding. Tom Dillman was always battling against that. Where's the next opportunity coming from? This year, he's got the stability. He's with Carlin. He's being backed by Jagonia I Am. He's effectively going to be coaching and bringing along Sean Gilal, and that's his role. We see that happen, that model, if you like, occasionally in single-seaters as younger drivers that are well-backed bring a senior driver along to help their development. You want someone in your stable that can bring you along. Mine at Van Buren doing his level best to eke out.
Yeah, throwing everything at it, isn't he? He was 3.6 ahead of Ollie Rowland coming on to this final lap. Jasman Jafar lies in third on the road, but Van Buren in the Lotus, the black and gold car, with a 10-second penalty to add to his time. Last lap round, that's why Dillman is trying so hard. Mathieu Vazivier, his Lotus teammate, was 10.4 behind. Van Buren is outpacing his teammate to try and make sure he stays in the top 4 rather than drops to 5th. But for Richard Dutton there in the white shirt, this is going to be a Fortec 1-2 time-affected result. Will put Van Buren back down to 4th place behind Jasman Jafar and Dean Stoneman and Ollie Rowland.
Well, Pietro Fantin's going quickly as well. He's only got a couple of seconds to get. So Mine at Van Buren had to push.
Fantin's 23.5 seconds
behind. Yeah, but it's 20
Van Buren.
seconds, isn't it? So
10.
No, he's got a 20-second penalty.
Oh, has he? I beg your pardon. Sorry.
20-second penalty.
I was thinking it was a 10-second penalty. It's car 10, 20-second penalty. Yes. All right, so we'll rephrase that. So he's trying to stay in 5th place, yes, ahead of Pietro Fantin. Into the hairpin for the last time comes Ollie Rowland. He will be behind Meinert Van Buren on the road. Van Buren takes the checker, and the 20 seconds starts from now. Ollie Rowland sweeps under the Fortec pit wall. They're jubilant. It's a 1-2 for the team, or it will be. Dean Stoneman will finish on the podium in 3rd, ahead of Lotus's Mathieu Vazivier. And then waiting for Pietro Fantin. And looking here at Gustav Malia, 12 versus Tom Dillman. Yes.
Yes, Tom Dillman. Yeah, Sean Gilal out the race.
Dillman is behind on the road, a lap behind, 2 laps behind, 1 lap behind, somewhere there, or possibly in front, hard to tell.
We know he's there. He's in Motorland Aragon. Let's keep it at that.
Dillman's transponder needs sorting out, definitely. Richard's on the phone already.
Richard's on the phone. Derek Walters in the white shirt. I said a second ago, he's the man that essentially travels around with the Racing Steps drivers, helps pick them and nurture them. And Ollie Rowland, they've really got a star in the making here. We've said it so many times, but you come here, I alluded to it earlier on in the race, you're effectively everyone's favourite. You've got a bit of pressure on your shoulders. The LEC's come in. You haven't quite got the advantage you wanted, but he's come to race 1 with his team, and all that hard work has paid off. It's the biggest relief, and you just know then it's there, it's still there. You've got the platform you hoped that you'd have over the winter, and he'll just grow and grow and grow in confidence, expecting to be very quick throughout the year. Jasman Jafar, that's a good return for him. I said he'd only ever finished a high place of 3rd. He's got 1 better.
That's a good place to start the season, certainly, on the podium with your teammate. So it shows that the Fortec team have got good setup. Fortec ran Dams very close for the team's title last year. It came down to a tiny hatful of points in the end, didn't it? Almost single figures, I think. It was single figures.
And then Dean Stoneman in 3rd.
Yeah.
A really, really good start to his campaign. The Red Bull back driver for the first time. It's a lot of pressure.
For Dams as well, because they've got 2 rookies as they try and defend their team title. So they need Stoneman to be strong, and Nick de Vries as well.